Sophie Cunningham just told the entire basketball world what is actually wrong with the Indiana Fever. Not the coaching, not the injuries, not the sideline spats, the defense, or more specifically, the lack of it. Cunningham stood at the practice facility microphone on Tuesday and said something that should be required reading for every person who has been debating the Fever's problems for the last week. She said the team is only running one defensive coverage right now. One.
Willing to play defense. It's not fun. No one wants to do it, but the good defensive teams, they're the teams that win, and we have the personnel to do it. I think something that's hurting us right now is we're only playing one defensive scheme, and in this league, it's too good. You can't, and people are going to pick us apart. And so,
Sophie's telling it all. Sophie is spilling the beans. Sophie's saying we're playing one defensive scheme.
She said last year they had 10 defensive schemes and could not execute them. She said each team has stuff up their sleeve, but if you cannot execute them, you cannot do them. And she said this team really does have to focus.
We have all the pieces, and now you just got to put the puzzle together. And I think that each year has growing pains, and we're in that right now. Like I said, we have all the pieces we need, but it's owning your role, knowing your role, and also just like being tough. We're just too soft right now, and that's not what our identity is. And so we need to get away from that.
Defensively, what areas do you think you all can grow in? You talked about the toughness
all
part,
of them.
But also, like, are there tactics? Are there things you can do from a technical standpoint?
Yeah, toughness is one of them. You just have to be.
Translation from Cunningham speak to plain English. The Indiana Fever are a 4-4 team that cannot execute a defensive game plan. They have the offensive talent to compete with anyone in the league. They have Clark and Mitchell and Boston. They lead the league in points per game. But they are getting scored on constantly because the team cannot consistently execute the defensive schemes that White is trying to run. And Cunningham, who has been in the WNBA long enough to know exactly what she is saying and exactly what it reveals, said it directly to the media. This is WNBA Pro, and Sophie Cunningham's one defensive scheme comment is the most important thing any Fever player has said publicly in the entire 2026 season. Let me start with the secret team meeting, because the meeting is what gives the defensive revelation its full context. On Monday afternoon, after the blowout loss to the Portland Fire, and after the viral sideline spat between Clark and White, and after the weekend that had the entire basketball world wondering if this team was falling apart, the Fever gathered for what Cunningham described as a 2-hour meeting. She said it started as a coaches' meeting, and then it quickly became a player-run meeting. 2 hours. The players peeled back all of the layers according to Cunningham. They talked about what was actually happening. They were honest with each other in a way that the games and the press conferences had not allowed for.
He is. Offensively, where we're struggling. Defensively, where is the breakdown? And so I think we were in there for like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, and we peeled back all the layers. And so I think everyone's on a good page right now, and we're ready to work.
Is that a player-initiated meeting, or coaches, or a bit of everybody?
We'll say started coaches and then ended up being player. So it was much needed.
Wow, bro, Sophie is spilling it all. So Sophie
Cunningham came out of that meeting and said, "We are on a good page and ready to work." And then she went to the press conference and explained what the meeting was actually about. The defense, the execution. The gap between the schemes White is trying to run and the team's ability to actually execute them in game situations. Nobody is talking about why the one defensive scheme comment exposes a fundamental coaching problem that goes deeper than any rotation decision. Let me explain. A professional basketball team in its second month of the season should be able to execute more than one defensive scheme. That is not an unreasonable expectation. You do not need 10 schemes, but 2 or 3 reliable defensive sets that the entire roster can execute consistently would give you the flexibility to adapt to different opponents. The Dream are coming on Thursday. They have Ryan Howard, who just dropped 36 points and 8 threes against the Connecticut Sun. They have Alicia Gray, who added 26. They have Angel Reese in the post. One defensive scheme is not going to stop all 3 of those problems on the same night. The Portland game confirmed this in the most brutal way possible. Clark was being hunted in defensive switches. Portland ran actions specifically designed to get Clark switched onto a bigger player, or onto a player who could exploit her size limitations. Clark got into foul trouble as a result. That is what the Portland coaching staff prepared for that game. They knew the Fever had limited defensive flexibility. They designed their offense to exploit exactly that, and it worked.
For the defense, we're just not able to execute right now. You know, it's
You just can't get to them. Not that you don't have them at all.
yeah, we have them. We have a ton of them. We try to do them, but they just break down because we can't execute. And when I say that, you know, maybe 3 people can execute, but if those other 2 players can't, it's a breakdown on defense. And so 1 through 5.
Oh, man. Sophie said it's 3 players that can't execute basketball schemes. Sophie Cunningham is...
The sideline exchange between Clark and White during the Portland loss was about exactly this defensive situation, according to multiple reporters who were watching the video closely. Clark was arguing about the defensive foul calls and likely about how the defensive scheme was being applied. White shut down the conversation by removing Clark from the huddle, and both of them defended the moment afterward by saying they are 2 competitive people who want to win. Do not get me wrong, one defensive scheme is not the only problem. Clark has shot a combined 4 of 19 from the field in the last 2 losses. The rotation management has been inconsistent. The 3-point shooting as a team was 22% against Portland. Multiple issues contributed to the last 2 losses. But the defensive scheme limitation that Cunningham identified is the most fixable problem on the list. You can build new defensive packages in practice. You can simplify execution to make schemes more reliable. You can design specific coverages for specific opponent strengths. That is coaching. That is what the team meeting on Monday was supposed to address. And White's response to Cunningham's comments on Tuesday was exactly what you want to hear from a coach who is listening. She said the team is trying to hone in on one scheme and scale back based on the matchup in order to build confidence since they were not executing the others well. She acknowledged the limitation. She explained the reasoning. The strategy is build confidence in one scheme and then expand. That is a legitimate coaching philosophy. You cannot add complexity to a system if the team cannot execute the basics. Stay with me, because here is what the 2-hour meeting actually accomplished and what still needs to happen before Thursday. The meeting accomplished trust building. Cunningham said they peeled back all the layers. That language suggests they talked about real problems honestly. Not just basketball, but the interpersonal dynamics that have been generating national headlines for a week. The Clark and White relationship, the sideline moment. The frustration that has been boiling over publicly. Those conversations needed to happen. The fact that they did happen in a 2-hour session on Monday is a positive development.
Yeah, I think when a coach wants to challenge you, she just sees your potential, you know, and it's not always going to be good. You know, I've been in and out of the starting lineup right now, and you have to put your ego and pride aside for what's best for the team and what the team needs. And so I think if everyone is willing to do that and wants to see the person right next to them be more successful than them, we're going to be really, really good, and we're going to be...
Hey guys, do me a...
The meeting also appears to have accomplished defensive clarity. One scheme. Everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows how to execute it. Thursday against the Dream is the first real test of whether the clarity from Monday translates to execution on the court. What the meeting did not accomplish is fixing the schedule. The Dream are 5-2 after beating the Sun on Tuesday. Rhyne Howard just dropped 36. Angel Reese had a double-double after her disaster against the Aces. The Dream are playing with confidence and momentum. And the Fever are coming in 4-4 with a 2-game losing streak and a week of national drama swirling around them. But here is what works in the Fever's favor for Thursday. Home court. The Gainbridge crowd that has been frustrated and skeptical is going to be hungry for a response. Clark has shown repeatedly that adversity fuels her best performances. After the back injury scratch, she came back and went 22-9. After the technical foul against Portland, she is going to come back motivated. The team meeting means the communication channels are open, and the single defensive scheme strategy, if properly executed, gives the team a clear identity going into the game. The question is whether the execution matches the clarity. Thursday is not a must-win in the mathematical sense. The Fever are 8 games into a 44-game season. There is plenty of time to recover from 4-4, but it is a must-win in the narrative sense. The story of this team in June hinges on what happens against the Dream. Beat Atlanta by 10, and the entire national conversation shifts back to what the Fever can be. Lose again, and the questions about coaching, about Clark's health, about the defensive limitations that Cunningham exposed, all of it gets louder. Sophie Cunningham said the right things on Tuesday. She was honest. She was direct. She identified the real problem, She reported that the team had a genuine conversation about it, and she pointed toward Thursday as the moment when the fans would see whether it translated. WNBA Pro has been calling for this exact level of player accountability since Game 1. WNBA Pro will be watching every defensive possession. This is WNBA Pro. Smash subscribe if you want the analysis that reads between the lines of every press conference. Drop your take in the comments. Did the 2-hour team meeting fix the real problems, or is Thursday going to expose them again? I want every prediction before Thursday tip-off. Hit the notification bell because the dream game is the most important test this team has faced all season.